February 8, 1945, a Nazi bomber is hurtling down a runway at nearly 90 miles an hour, and the man in the pilot's seat doesn't have the strength to pull back the controls. Not because the plane is broken, because he weighs 84 pounds. And 8 months of starvation have taken everything his muscles had left to give. The Heinkel. A 111 required nearly 50 pounds of force just to lift its nose. Devyatayev had barely more than that left in his entire body. Behind him, 9 starving prisoners. Behind them, a truck full of German soldiers, closing in fast, 10 seconds before the end of the runway. But the real question isn't how he got that plane off the ground. The real question is, how did a man officially recorded as dead in a Nazi camp end up in the cockpit of a German bomber? To understand the escape, you have to begin with the death certificate, Sachsenhausen, 1944, concentration camp. The crematorium ran every night. Mikhail Devyatayev, Soviet fighter pilot, 17 confirmed kills. He had tried to escape too many times. A death sentence was only a matter of paperwork. According to camp records, he was next in line. Then one day, while he was getting a haircut, a prisoner in the hallway lit a cigarette. A guard beat the man to death on the spot. The barber didn't hesitate. He pulled the number tag off the corpse and switched it with Devyatayev's. Hours later, Devyatayev was cremated. According to Nazi records, the pilot was dead. The real man started a new life under the name Grigory Nikitenko, a nameless infantry soldier. No one was looking for him, that's why. 6 months later, he could stand on the Peenemünde airfield, and no one recognized him. The one camp a pilot should never reach Ustum Island, the Baltic coast. On his first morning, Devyatayev understood exactly where he was. V-2 rockets rose from their launch pads into the sky. This was where Hitler was building the future of war. But Devyatayev noticed something else. Planes. Here, prisoners didn't survive on hope. They survived 1 week at a time. Devyatayev had already been there 3 weeks. He started studying. Every work detail became a reconnaissance mission. He stole tiny instruction plaques from wrecked aircraft, hid them in his mess tin, studied them at night. He watched mechanics, watched pilots run pre-flight checks, memorized every movement.
Engine secure, sir.
Then one day, a German pilot noticed the gaunt prisoner, tiptoeing up to look through the cockpit glass instead of calling a guard. He wanted to show off. He ran through the entire startup sequence again, slower, more deliberate, like he was performing for an audience. Devyatayev didn't blink. Every switch, every step, that German pilot had just personally taught the man who would steal his airplane, and he would never know it. One aircraft kept appearing more than any other. A Heinkel, marked GA on the fuselage, always fueled, always ready. It belonged to the deputy commandant. Devyatayev picked his target, but finding the plane was the easy part. The impossible part was finding 9 men who could keep a secret long enough to reach it, in a camp full of informants. Trust could get you killed. But Devyatayev still needed a crew. He started with Ivan Krivonogov, a former sergeant who had tried to escape twice from other camps. Been beaten nearly to death both times. He wasn't afraid anymore. From there, the plan spread quietly. 10 men total. Not because they believed it would work, but because staying
meant certain death. The date, February 8th, 1945. Midday. Light snow.
Low visibility. The group was assigned to runway maintenance, same as any other day. The guard on duty was young, new, not paying close attention. At 12:15, he stepped into a drainage ditch to relieve himself, out of sight of the watchtower. Alone with the prisoners, 30 seconds, Krivonogov moved. A shovel swung. The guard dropped, without a sound. They stripped off his uniform. One man put it on, tight across the shoulders. But at that distance, in the snow, it would hold. Krivonogov barked orders in broken German. 9 men fell into line. They walked straight across the airfield. Hearts pounding, eyes forward, a real guard stepped into their path, squinted. Let them through. Aircraft GA was right in front of them. 2 German mechanics working nearby. Before they could say a word, Devyatayev was already running for the cockpit. The door was unlocked. He climbed in. Hundreds of switches. 3 minutes. The instrument panel stretched out in front of him.
Hundreds of switches.
German labels he couldn't read. He had about 3 minutes. Fuel primer. Ignition. Nothing. He'd missed a step. The battery switch. He found it. Flipped it up. The instrument lights flickered on. The left engine coughed, sputtered, caught. The right engine followed. Both running. The Heinkel began to roll, lurching, nearly tipping. The men in the back were thrown against the walls. Alarms started blaring. A truck full of soldiers came tearing out from behind a hangar. Devyatayev reached the runway, swung the nose around. The truck was 100 yards behind. He pushed both throttles to the floor, 87 miles an hour. Down the runway, he pulled the control column toward his chest. It didn't move. 8 months of starvation. He wasn't strong enough. Behind him, soldiers had jumped off the truck. Rifles up, 10 seconds before the end of the runway. Devyatayev screamed for help. 2 prisoners stumbled forward, grabbed the column alongside him. 3 men, pulling. The column moved. A few inches, the nose lifted. Just barely, just enough. The wheels left the ground at 12:21 p.m. But takeoff was not escape. The order to pursue went out immediately. But in the snow and cloud cover, the Heinkel had already vanished. Colonel Walter Dahl, one of the most decorated ace pilots in the Luftwaffe, spotted a lone Heinkel. Flying low. Out of formation. No escort. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Dahl locked on. Moved in close. Squeezed the trigger. Nothing. Again. Nothing. He was out of ammunition. Had burned through everything on a previous mission. He rocked his wings, then turned back. No one inside the Heinkel knew. They had just survived by inches. 10 prisoners had just survived. Because of an empty magazine, and none of them would know it for decades. They had survived the Luftwaffe. Now they had to survive their own side. 50 minutes after takeoff, smoke began trailing from the left engine, damage from Peenemunde's anti-aircraft fire. Finally showing, Devyatayev fought to keep the plane on course. 60 minutes in. Below, shell craters. Burned out villages. They were closing in on the front line. Then Soviet anti-aircraft batteries spotted a German bomber. Heading straight for their positions, they didn't ask questions. They opened fire. Rounds tore through the fuselage. The left engine burst into flames. Oil spread across the wing. Engine dead. The Heinkel started dropping. 3,000 feet. 2,000. 1,000. Devyatayev aimed for a snow-covered field and pulled back hard. The bomber hit the ground like a dropped weight. The landing gear collapsed. The belly scraped across frozen earth. The plane slid to a stop. Devyatayev was alive, injured, shaking. He looked back into the cabin. 9 men, all moving, all alive. Soviet soldiers came running from the trenches. Rifles raised. Devyatayev stood up. 84 pounds. Prison uniform soaked in fuel and dirt. Don't shoot. We're Soviet. We just escaped from Peenemünde. The soldiers looked at each other. Nobody believed him. Counterintelligence took them into custody immediately. Not as heroes, as suspects to the NKVD. The story sounded impossible. And in Stalin's system, impossible usually meant suspicious. Devyatayev told them everything. The intelligence he brought back would later help drive the Soviet rocket program. But no one thanked him for it. They put him in a penal military unit. Still under suspicion, the war ended 3 months later. They released him, but didn't restore his rank, didn't give back his pilot's license, didn't call him a hero. Soviet doctrine was clear and brutal. Real soldiers die fighting. Anyone who survived captivity was a suspect. For 12 years, Mikhail Devyatayev lived like a ghost. A factory worker in Kazan, his story locked in a classified file. In 1957, rocket scientist Sergei Korolev told Soviet officials the truth. On August 15th of that year, 12 years after the impossible flight, Devyatayev was awarded Hero of the Soviet Union. Devyatayev escaped Nazi Germany in 1 hour. It took him 12 years to escape the suspicion of his own country. The miracle wasn't just the plane. It was a barber who swapped a number tag, German pilot who showed off the wrong startup sequence, 3 prisoners who pulled a control column, 1 man couldn't move alone, and an empty magazine. Over enemy skies, he had made it home. but it took 12 years before his country let him belong there again. If stories like this deserve to be remembered, subscribe and stay with DEFY.